So our another subject is Introduction to Literary Discourse and Journalistic Writing. Remember, in both these subjects, one thing is common, and that common thing is discourse. In the class which we had before this, we had media discourse analysis. That subject is media discourse analysis, and this one is literary discourse and journalistic writing. What is literary discourse and what is journalistic writing? This is something we'll discuss here in this course. Now, what is literary discourse? Discourse का तो आपको मैंने बताया था. What is discourse? Can anyone remind me? What is discourse?
Sir, written or spoken communication.
Yeah, that conveys something, some meaning. That is called discourse. Now, there are different types of discourses. Right now, we are talking about literary discourse. So, what is literary discourse? Here you can see Foucault presents. Foucault was an author, a writer, a researcher. He presents possibly the best definition of discourse. Definitions there are बहुत सारी और भी definitions है, लेकिन इसके बारे में कहा जाता है कि ये one of the best definitions of discourse. What he says about discourse, क्या कहता है? Discourse means systems of thoughts composed of ideas, attitudes, and course of action, belief, and practices that systematically construct the subjects and the words of which they speak. Did you understand what it means? Once again, systems of thoughts composed of ideas. Means जो system is thought that is composed of ideas, attitudes. Only ideas are not enough. Attitudes, हमारा रवैया, and courses of action and the actions which we perform. Beliefs, हमारे जो अकीदे होते हैं, and practices and whatever we practice. That systematically construct the subjects and the words of which they speak. और ये सब चीजें जो होती है, ये उस चीज को construct करते हैं what we speak. This is what he says discourse is. Means when we talk about discourse, it means we talk about all these things. Then we realize the meaning of that particular discourse. Is that clear? Yes? Voice not coming?
Yes, sir.
Originally, it has roots in the Latin language. You will find it has been derived from Latin language, and the term assumes slightly different meanings in different contexts. So, इसकी थोड़ी सी different meaning होती है different context में. Context is very important. अब हम, if you talk about literature, of course, here we are talking about literature. So, in literature, discourse means speech or writing, normally longer than sentences, which deals with a certain subject formally. So if we talk about literature, and right now we are talking about literature, so it means speech or writing. Whether it is speech or writing, it normally it is longer than sentences. जुमलों से वो लंबे होते हैं, which deals with a certain subject formally. Then, in other words, discourse is the presentation of language in its entirety. What does it mean? Discourse is the presentation of language. Language को present करने का एक अंदाज है in its entirety. What does it mean? What do you understand by this sentence particularly? Yes, you can share your opinion. Yes, Arya. Discourse is the presentation of language, means we present our ideas through definitely language. So it is the presentation of language in its entirety. Entirety means in its complete form. While performing an intellectual inquiry in a particular area of field, such as theological discourse. अब theological discourse क्या होते हैं? जो which are related to religion, that is called theological. So theological discourse or cultural discourse, which is related to culture. Then there are different types of literary discourse. Remember, we are right now talking about literary discourse. We're not talking about other, discourse. So there are types of literary discourse. For example, generally speaking, anytime someone uses language to communicate, they are utilizing discourse. यानी कि जब आप language को use करते हैं, so you are utilizing discourse. Discourse marker का नाम कभी सुना आप लोगों ने? Have you ever heard about discourse marker?
Sir, can you please repeat literary discourse again?
Literary discourse means
Sir, the previous page, please.
Previous page. Discourse is the presentation of language in its entirety while performing an intellectual inquiry in a particular area or field. Means you are performing an intellectual inquiry in any particular area or field. किसी particular area or field में आप जो है वो काम कर रहे हैं. Like theology. Theology means diniyat. Theological discourse means this is a discourse which is related to theology, which is related to religion. Or cultural discourse. Cultural discourse is something that is related to culture. So this is what the presentation of language in its entirety. It definitely undertakes, or it takes, your ideas, attitudes, your courses of action, belief, and practices. All these things are included in discourse. So it doesn't mean, जैसे मैंने आपसे direct अभी जुमला पूछा था, उसमें मैंने आपसे पूछा था कि stop, what does it mean? What sense does it give? तो आप सबने कहा ये ऑर्डर है. फिर मैंने उसी तरह वही imperative जुमला मैंने आगे लिख दिया कि टर्न राइट एंड देन लेफ्ट. तो आपने कहा ये इंस्ट्रक्शन है. तो असल में आप ये जुमले अक्सर पढ़े, आपने देखे लिखे हुए, इसीलिए आपको ये समझ में आया कि ये इंस्ट्रक्शन है. कॉन्टेक्स्ट आपको का अंदाजा हो गया. बट नॉर्मली व्हाट हैपेंस, वी अंडरस्टैंड विद द हेल्प ऑफ द सब्जेक्ट. जो स्पीकर होता है उसकी मदद से वी अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट द कॉन्टेक्स्ट इज ऑल अबाउट. अब मिसाल के तौर पे आप कंप्यूटर खेल रहे हो, उसमें आपसे कहा गया स्टॉप, तो वो आपको इंस्ट्रक्शन दे रहा है. इट्स नॉट गिविंग यू गो. आप आगे अपना खिलाड़ी लेके नहीं जा रहे तो आपको कहेगा गो 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 गो. सो व्हाट इज इट डूइंग? इट इज नॉट ऑर्डरिंग यू, इट इज इंस्ट्रक्टिंग यू. वो आपको इंस्ट्रक्शन दे रहा है, हिदायत दे रहा है कि आगे जाओ भाई, आगे बढ़ो. ठीक है. और जहाँ रुकने का होता है वहाँ स्टॉप कह देता है, स्टॉप. देन आपको बोलता है कंटिन्यू. सो द थिंग इज दैट वी नो अबाउट द स्पीकर, दैट्स व्हाई वी अंडरस्टैंड इट इज ऑर्डर, it is command, and it is instruction. So this is what we understand through discourse. Attitude क्या है, ideas क्या है, course of action क्या है, belief उसमें किस चीज़ का है, practices उसकी किस चीज़ की. अगर religious bent of mind होगा तो वो definitely he will not talk about things which are against religion. Or if he's a liberal person, then he may go against the religion. So ये भी मैटर करता है कि who is saying what is being said. एक ही चीज दो लोग अगर बोलेंगे, they may be different from each other in their discourses. Why? Because their beliefs may be different, their practices may be different. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
तो मैं आप लोगों को एक आध बुक भी सेंड करूंगा. मैं खुद भी आई एम सर्चिंग एंड इंशाल्लाह आई विल सेंड इट टू यू, एंड आई हैव गिवन यू द लिस्ट एज वेल. तो उनमें से जो आपको पीडीएफ फॉर्म में मिल जाए, so you can also share, and those books contain things related to literary discourse and other things which you are studying right now. So anytime someone uses language to communicate, so they're utilizing discourse. The job of the writer then is one that primarily depends on discourse to tell stories, share ideas, and disseminate information, gives information. तो राइटर का जो जॉब ये काम होता है वो क्या होता है, प्राइमरीली यानी कि मेनली इट डिपेंड्स ऑन डिस्कोर्स टू टेल स्टोरी। हो सकता है वो आपको स्टोरी सुना रहा हो, या आपसे आइडियाज शेयर कर रहा हो, या आपको इन्फॉर्मेशन दे रहा हो। तो एसेंशियली विदाउट डिस्कोर्स देयर वुड बी नो लिटरेचर। तो डिस्कोर्स नहीं है तो लिटरेचर भी नहीं है। लिटरेचर डिपेंड्स ऑन डिस्कोर्स। Not all discourse is the same, however, and literary scholars break it down into four main. अब लिटरेरी जो स्कॉलर्स हैं, जो अदबी स्कॉलर्स हैं, जो अदब के एक्सपर्ट हैं, दे हैव डिवाइडेड डिस्कोर्स इनटू फोर टाइप्स। उन्होंने इसको फोर टाइप्स में डिवाइड किया, पर मजीद इस पर डिवीजन हुआ है। So these are the four types which you can right now see: argument, description, exposition, and narration. Any question regarding this slide? Yes, does anybody have any question regarding this slide? Voice not coming? किसी को इस हवाले, इस स्लाइड के हवाले से कुछ पूछना हो तो मुझसे पूछ सकते हैं। Your voice is not coming. Argument discourse. Now, what is argument discourse? Now, an argument is an attempt to convince the reader through logic and reason. When you want to convince your reader through logic and reasoning, this is called argument. And this kind of discourse is called argument discourse. The writer will make a specific claim and then present evidence that supports that claim. जैसे आप लोग essay लिखते हैं, that is called argument essays, in which you write one thing, you claim one thing, and then you give supportive sentences and you support those, you provide evidence in order to support that particular statement. So the writer will make a specific claim and then present evidence that supports that claim. For example, academic essays employ argumentative discourse to persuade readers about the truth of an overarching thesis. Essays वगैरह में ये बहुत commonly इस्तेमाल होता है. As I told you that we have different types of essays. One of them is argumentative essay, in which we provide arguments, we make a statement, and then we give or present evidence to support that statement, and this is what we call argument. And that discourse is called argument discourse. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
ये argument discourse के बारे में clear हुआ क्या? याद रखिएगा, these are the types of literary discourse. इसी तरह से अगर आप कोई ऐसे लिख रहे हैं, literary essay लिख रहे हैं, so you can also write this thing. For example, Bacon के essays में आप देखिएगा एक statement होता है, उसके बाद have you read Bacon? Bacon पढ़ा आपने? Bacon essays. Do you know about Bacon?
No,
Sir
sir.
Francis
No,
Bacon.
sir.
नहीं पढ़ा. So Sir Francis Bacon was a great essayist, Renaissance prose writer, and his essays, in his essays, you will find that he gave one statement, and then he mentioned many, supportive statements. And normally, when we write a paragraph, so we have one first topic sentence, and then we have supportive sentences. So that is what we have arguments. तो हम उस statement को evidence के जरिए साबित करना चाहते हैं. That is what we call argument discourse. Then,
Sir?
yes.
So can we also say that argumentative essay is the argumentative discourse?
In argumentative essays, we use argumentative discourse. यानी उसके अंदर आप argumentative discourse का इस्तेमाल करते हैं. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
ऐसे के अंदर जो डिस्कोर्स इस्तेमाल किया गया है वो आर्गुमेंटेटिव होता है. Okay. Then description. The description is a sensory experience for the reader, one that aims to help them develop clear mental images. ये एक किस्म का sensory type का होता है जिसमें आप when the writer tell us something, so it happens that images start developing in our mind. So clear mental images of the information presented. Novels, short stories, and poems that depend on the power of description to entertain and move readers. तो आप जब poems को पढ़े, मिसाल के तौर पे आपको एक छोटी सी मिसाल दे रहा हूँ in very simple example. Stopping by the woods on a snowy evening. आप में से किसी ने पढ़ी है? रॉबर्ट फ्रॉस्ट.
Yes, sir.
तो जब आप उस पोएम को पढ़ते हैं तो क्या होता है? What do you feel?
तो उसमें डिस्क्राइब किया गया है एक इवनिंग के मंजर, इवनिंग के साइड.
A very beautiful imagery. You'll find beautiful. Yeah, very beautiful imageries you'll find over there. Evening का भी मंजर सीन ऐसा होता है कि जब when you'll find that darkest evening of the year. And when you find that the sun has almost set, and there is a traveler with his, horse and thinking about many things. बहुत सारी चीजें उसके ज़हन में चल रही होती हैं और ये भी सोच रहा था कि उसका जानवर क्या सोच रहा होगा. So all these things have been described in a very beautiful way. तो जब हम इसको पढ़ते हैं तो फिर क्या होता है कि हम उस दुनिया में चले जाते हैं थोड़ी देर के लिए, and then we suddenly come back. जॉन कीट्स की शायरी में ये खासियत बहुत ज़्यादा थी कि when you read his poetry, short poems like odes. So when you read them, so you'll feel that you have gone to that world, and it has sensuousness. John Keats पढ़ा ना आप लोगों ने?
Yes, sir.
तो इसकी poetry कोई इसकी ode अगर पढ़ी?
Sir, Ode to the Nightingale.
Narration earn भी पढ़ा था.
Narration earn भी पढ़ा था. Ode to the Nightingale में क्या आपने पढ़ा? क्या समझ में आया? That is the example of poetic discourse. Yes.
He supernaturalized the natural things.
Actually, John Keats was a poet of beauty. He is one of the great writers he died very early. He was just 26 when he died, and he remained ill for 5 years or 6 years. And that illness was a terminal illness that had no cure, and that was TB. तो इस बीमारी में मुब्तला होने के बावजूद very young he died. He produced masterpieces. ठीक है? तो उसकी खास बात है कि he was a poet of sensuousness. When we read his poetry, so it appeals to our senses. हमारे senses को appeal करता है. So descriptive. This is called descriptive power. तो उनके अंदर ये power थी, descriptive power. And you will find such things in novels. Short stories में भी आपको इस तरह की चीजें मिलेंगी. Poems में बहुत आम मिलेंगी. And these things depend on the power of description to entertain and move readers. ये चीजें आपको मिलेंगी. आप किसी ड्रामे को देख ले, ड्रामे में भी ये चीजें आपको मिलेंगी कि बाज़ औक़ात ड्रामे का एंड ही वहाँ पर करते हैं जहाँ पे बहुत हाइट क्रिएट करनी होती है. They end the what should I say here, episode where they find something like this so that the reader can be attached to it throughout the week, ताकि पूरा आपका रीडर उसका इंतजार करे. और फिर जब वो वहाँ से शुरू होता है तो इतना कुछ नहीं होता. So this is how they do what they describe things. Is that clear? So their discourse is called description.
Sir?
Yes.
The description, sceneries और मंजर निगारी इस टाइप के अलावा सर किसी और चीज में होता है? Like अगर हम किसी इंसान को डिस्क्राइब कर रहे हैं या किसी हादसे को डिस्क्राइब कर रहे हैं तब
कर सकते हैं. भाई देखिए पोएट्री में कोई चीज nothing is left over there. You can describe anything in poetry. You can describe beautiful scene. You can talk about any anything can become the object of poetry. तो उसमें ये सब चीज़ें शामिल हो जाती हैं. Describe, for example, some writers, Urdu poets have described, the importance of roti. एक ने तो रेलगाड़ी पर जो है एक पोएम लिखी. तो मतलब कहने का है कि you can for subject, for poetry, idea is everything, and idea is something that is present everywhere you can write. राइटर के पास इसलिए तो बहुत ज्यादा स्कोप होता है कि वो किसी भी चीज पर कलम उठा सकते हैं, नहीं लिख सकते हैं वो. Exposition. Now, what is exposition? Exposition informs the audience of a certain fact, but doesn't seek to influence the audience opinion of that fact. वो आपको क्या करेगा? He will inform you of a certain fact. एक चीज के बारे में बता, फैक्ट के बारे में बता देगा, but he does not seek to influence. वो आपकी ओपिनियन पर इन्फ्लुएंस नहीं डालेगा, असर अंदाज नहीं होगा. Expositional discourse is neutral. लैंग्वेज में न्यूट्रल होता है, एंड टोन टू अवॉइड परसुएडिंग और स्टरिंग इमोशन इन द रीडर. दे विल नॉट परसुएड यू, वो आपको परसुएड नहीं करेगा, क्योंकि उनका पर्पस क्या होता है? देयर पर्पस इज प्योरली इंफॉर्मेशनल. वो सिर्फ आपको इंफॉर्मेशन प्रोवाइड कर रहा होता है. जैसे न्यूज स्टोरीज एंड अदर जर्नलिस्टिक राइटिंग्स एज वेल एज कंपैरेटिव एनालिसिस एंड अदर रिसर्च ओरिएंटेड लिटरेचर, दे ऑल यूटिलाइज एक्सपोजिशन. ये सब एक्सपोजिशन डिस्कोर्स का इस्तेमाल करते हैं. न्यूज स्टोरीज आपने देखा होगा, they don't influence you, or they don't try to influence you or persuade you. जर्नलिस्टिक राइटिंग भी आपने देखा होगा, they don't try to persuade you. कंपैरेटिव एनालिसिस को आप देख लें, रिसर्च ओरिएंटेड लिटरेचर को आप देख लें, so they will not persuade you, they will just give you information. वो सिर्फ आपको information देंगे. And such discourses you will find exposition discourses or exposition discourse. Is that clear? Yeah, any question about this one?
No, sir.
I will provide you, inshallah, the handouts of all these. Maybe in 2 to 3 days. I actually go to the university every day, so I will definitely come to the university, Benazir Bhutto State University, inshallah, tomorrow or day after tomorrow. I go to other universities as well. तो कहीं फिजिकल, जहाँ मैं पहले जाता हूँ वहाँ फिजिकल क्लासेस स्टार्ट हो चुकी है. एक प्रॉब्लम ये हमारे पास हो गया, यहाँ पे आप लोगों क्या स्टार्ट नहीं हुई, यहाँ पर इस यूनिवर्सिटी में अभी तक स्टार्ट नहीं हुई है. होपफुली इंशाल्लाह a week after a week we may have physical class. तो कोशिश यही कि कम से कम एक क्लास फिजिकल हो जाए, ताकि हम उसमें जो है प्रैक्टिकली बहुत सी चीज़ें डिस्कस कर लें. तो इंशाल्लाह मैं हैंडआउट्स रखवा दूंगा मैडम परियाल के पास, तो यू कैन, और आई मे गिव इट टू द सीआर एंड यू कैन कलेक्ट फ्रॉम द सीआर. Narration. Narration is a written commentary that presents the story to the reader. अब ये देखें, it is the written commentary that presents the story to the reader. It is the voice of the storyteller. और ये भी हो सकता है कि ये storyteller की voice है. Narration engages the reader through compelling language that elicits emotion and empathy and keeps the reader turning the page. आपने बहुत सी फिल्में देखी होंगी जिसमें एक बंदा नरेट कर रहा होता है. Have you ever heard this one? Have you ever noticed? कभी नोट किया आपने इस चीज को कि वो सी चीजें जो है नरेटर नरेट कर देता है और उसके बाद कहानी शुरू होती है. बाज़ औक़ात कुछ चीजें ऐसी होती है, there are some scenes which are difficult to
एंड तक नरेट कर रहे होते हैं.
एंड और जैसे आप टाइटैनिक एक फिल्म थी, उसको देखिएगा, शुरुआत में ही वो नरेशन से स्टार्ट होता है. वो बताते हैं कि इतने अरसे पहले ये हुआ था, वो हुआ था, उसके बाद ये हुआ, फिर ये हुआ. और उस फिल्म की खासियत है कि वो स्टार्ट भी एंड से ही होती है और फिर एंड ही में खत्म हो जाती है, उसका कोई बिगिनिंग है ही नहीं. व्हेन इट स्टार्ट्स दैट ओल्ड वुमन इज देयर, तो वो अपने बचपन को रिकॉल कर रही होती है. सो यू विल फाइंड ओवर देयर स्टोरी टेलिंग. So narration is a written commentary that presents the story to the reader. So narration is a cornerstone of novels, short stories and some plays. Novels में आपको बहुत सारे मिलेंगे narration, first person narrator, second person, third person narrator आपको मिलेगा. जहाँ पे आपको I का इस्तेमाल मिलेगा तो वहाँ याद रखिएगा वो first person narrator है. वो narrator जो है वो अपने साथ जो उसके वाकयात हुए, वो मतलब उस वाकये में और उन तमाम मामलात में वो खुद भी शामिल था. तो वो अपने उस पर बता रहा है कि, और थर्ड पर्सन नरेटर का मतलब वो उसने जो कुछ देखा वो बता रहा है. So you'll find this very common in novels, and then short stories and some plays you'll also find narration. So that discourse is called narrative discourse or narration discourse. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, some other schools of thoughts break literary discourse down into the categories of expressive. अभी जो हमने डिस्कस किया, अगर इसमें किसी को कोई प्रॉब्लम हो, so you can ask me right now, otherwise we'll proceed to the next one.
No,
फिर
sir.
कुछ schools of thoughts जो है उन्होंने मजीद इसको ब्रेक किया और मजीद इसके बारे में बताते हैं. So what they are telling us, we'll discuss them now. यहाँ देखिएगा, हो सकता है कल या परसों I will mention some topics for the next week regarding both these subjects, and those topics inshallah will discuss. इनमें कुछ topics होंगे which are purely related to grammar as well, because and there are certain topics which are related to poetic language as well, devices. There are different types of poetic devices which we have to study in order to understand this discourse. So since discourse is related to language, so we have to study some grammatical aspect. मैं आप लोगों से पूछूंगा, और मुझे मैं फील करता हूँ कि बहुत से स्टूडेंट्स को या मेजॉरिटी को नहीं मालूम होगा, तो डेफिनेटली आई हैव टू टेल देम अबाउट दोस थिंग. फिर उसके बारे में बात बताऊंगा कि हाउ टू राइट डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ राइटिंग. So I'll mention the topics so that you can study them in advance as well. Some other schools of thoughts break literary discourse down into the categories of expressive, poetic and transactional discourse. उन्होंने मज़ीद इसको break किया, और वो क्या कहते हैं कि there are some other categories as well, like expressive discourse, poetic discourse, and transactional discourse. For example, about expressive discourse, what they say. So expressive discourse, according to them, reflects the emotions of the writer. ये writer की जो emotions है वो जो reflect होता है, जो हमारे सामने आता है, वो किसके जरिए आता है? Expressive discourse के जरिए. And expressive has been derived from expression. Expression में जो express कर रहा होता है. So expressive discourse reflects the emotions of the writer. Its focus is on generating and discussing ideas with little or no emphasis on concrete facts or attempts to persuade others of a central argument. मजीद क्या कहा जा रहा है? Works of expressive discourse are always non-fiction. What is non-fiction, by the way?
Sir, which is real, true.
Which is fact. So works of expressive discourse are always non-fiction. जैसे कि diaries and journals, blogs, memoirs, they all are the examples of non-fiction. Can you give me any other example of non-fiction literature, or sorry, non-fiction?
Sir, dramas are also based on non-fictions.
Dramas, non-fiction, I think.
Sometimes.
Dramas, actually, you can't say.
So biography.
There are short
Biography,
stories.
non-fiction, right? और इसके अलावा?
The biopic जो films बनती हैं, biographies को.
This non-fiction
Biopic.
means which has facts, which has real things, which are not based on any artificial or any fictitious thing. That is called non-fiction. An expressive discourse.
Sir, prose.
Yeah, prose तो उसमें आ जाएगा. Prose तो एक medium है. इस तरह poetry एक medium है. So works of expressive discourse are always non-fiction. ये हमेशा non-fiction होते हैं. They are related to diaries and journals and blogs and memoirs etc.
Sir, can it be a poem?
Poem.
A poem is written on a specific person or
Do you
on
remember
their life.
last year I don't think that I taught you I taught I think a class non-fiction. इस तरह से कुछ subject था उनका ना. Have you read that studied that course non-fiction?
Fiction and non-fiction, I guess.
Fiction and non-fiction. Non-fiction में आपके पास क्या था जो आप लोगों ने पढ़ा? Fiction में तो आपके novels वगैरह थे. Non-fiction में क्या?
कोई कोर्स नहीं.
Non-fiction में आपके पास वही थे ना, essay, speeches, इस तरह की कुछ चीजें थी. Speeches हो गए, essays हो गए, इस तरह की चीजें. They are related to non-fiction, which has reality. Fiction में reality नहीं होती. अगर चाहे कोई real चीज ही बता रहे हैं, but they will tell you in a you know in an artificial way. में character उसमें unreal होते हैं और उसके अंदर उसके settings वगैरह unreal होती हैं. ठीक है? There may be the story is true, but other things are unreal. Okay. Then we have a very important thing, that is poetic discourse. Now, this is probably one of the most important, prominent, and well-known forms of literary discourse, and that is called poetic discourse. This type of written communication includes most creative works like fictional novels, poetry, fictional short story collections, and screenplays. Remember, poetic discourse is a highly creative approach to fictional writing. It is a highly creative approach to fictional writing. Why? Q. Because the writer presents thoughts, feelings, and events, places, and characters, all in imaginative and sometimes rhythmic language that appeals to readers' emotions. अब मिसाल के तौर पे एक मिसाल दे रहा हूँ कि आप एक ड्रामा है Turkish drama that is very famous, Article. देखा होगा आप लोगों ने भी. What is the name of that drama?
Article Ghazi.
Article Ghazi. So it has a rhythmic music in the beginning. So it also plays a very important role in appealing to the senses. So the writer presents thoughts, feelings, and events, and places and characters all in imaginative and sometimes rhythmic language that appeals to readers' emotions, जो कि readers के emotions को appeal करता है, readers उससे काफी मुतासिर होता है. And this is something that we get from poetic discourse. And of course, that discourse is called poetic. Yes. Does anybody have any question regarding this? मैं चाह रहा हूँ कि जो remaining part चीजें वो इंशाल्लाह हम थर्ड इसके बाद वाली सेशन में देख लेंगे. After 5 to 10 minutes, I will start the last session. तो अभी तक जो आपको करवाया गया इसमें अगर आपको कोई प्रॉब्लम है तो आप मुझसे पूछ सकते हैं. कुछ चीजें हो सकता है मैं ग्रुप में आज ही सेंड कर दूं which are related to the discourse. So if you have any question, you can ask me. I'm giving you 1 minute, and after 1 minute, I will end the session, and then I will start after 10 minutes. Remember, you must have a notebook with you when you take class, or when you sit to take class. Without notebook, you will not be able to underline things. Video तो आपके पास फिर भी आ जाएगी, but right now you are live. So when you are live, so you can get the answer of your questions easily, and you can get your problem solved. No question?
No, sir.
Okay. So I'm ending the session. See you after this one.
Sir, there is another one.
Yes.
Transactional discourse.
Yes, there is another one. We'll discuss this. Not only there is another one, but there are many examples which I have brought for you in this particular presentation. तो वो भी हम इंशाल्लाह देखेंगे, but after this session. वो अभी possible नहीं है, इसीलिए मैं इसको चाह रहा हूँ कि थोड़ी सी ब्रेक ले लें, and then inshallah I'll come with the third session.